Good. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the. Can I ask everyone to be muted, please? And welcome to the 7th session of the 3rd IRENA Innovation Week. This has become a major biennial event for IRENA, and this year the focus is on the use of renewables in industry and transport. My name is Martina Lyons, and I'm from the International Renewable Energy Agency, and it is my pleasure to be your host and Center Director to give his welcoming remarks. Dolph, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martina, and welcome everyone to this session. Thank you for joining this 3rd IRENA Innovation Week. This one is different from the previous 2 Innovation Weeks because it's online due to the circumstances. The previous Innovation Week in 2018 focused on power systems flexibility for integration of solar and wind, and this time we focus on end-use sectors and sector coupling. So the world is facing an energy transition. Indicators are everywhere: new wind turbines, solar panels, electric cars, and low oil prices. However, we need to accelerate the energy transition 4- to 5-fold if we want to stay within the Paris climate objectives. More and more countries are subscribing to the ambitious goal of decarbonising by 2050 or 60, and while the objective is clear, the path to get there is not so clear. And especially in hard to decarbonize sectors in transport and industry, technology innovation is key, and these sectors are therefore at the core of the discussions this week. That includes electrification and green hydrogen, as well as the use of biomass for energy and feedstocks, and we had separate sessions on these topics during the past days. So this Innovation Week is part of a growing IRENA program of work focused on end-use sectors. This week's discussions build on inputs such as our annual Global Renewables Outlook that we published in April and our Reaching Zeros with Renewables report that we launched 21st of September. The insights from the discussions this week will inform our further work, including the next edition of a Global Outlook, which is scheduled for Spring 21. And we are also working with partners to ensure that the insights inform the climate discussions in preparation for COP26, November 21. So IRENA Innovation Week will provide essential input for the global debate on 1.5-degree scenarios and strategies. We have 7 sessions over the 4 days. We want to inspire and inform decision makers by showing what's possible. We want to showcase innovative solutions from around the world that can help to deliver deep decarbonization in industry and transport. And we want to bring together innovative companies, researchers, and policymakers to explore what is being done and what we need to focus on more. On Monday, African Commissioner Abu Zaid, in her intervention, highlighted the role of African youth in supporting energy transition with their unique skills, especially in the area of digitalization. And therefore, we're delighted also, specifically for this session, to have 4 African young entrepreneurs. If you should actively try to participate in this session. The dialogue is a key part of this dialogue, of this event. You can ask questions to the Q&A function. Time allowing, our moderators will try to include these in the panel debates. But please also share your reactions and your insights from your work through this function. We'll capture all your feedback and utilize it in the next phase of analysis and engagement on this topic. I hope for a fruitful and engaging dialogue. Thank you for your attention. This concludes my opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Dolph. Indeed, youth and young entrepreneurs play an important role in finding novel solutions and accelerate the energy transition, either by developing innovative solutions and ingenious business models. And this was already recognized by some of the policymakers in the opening session. But let's move to the session. As Dolph mentioned, Under normal circumstances, we would have met in person, as was the case in the previous IRENA Innovation Weeks edition in 2016 and 2018. But having a virtual event has its benefits too. We can connect from anywhere in the world, and in fact, we have over 2,000 registered attendees for the whole week of discussions who are coming from over 140 different countries. Our speakers also come from many different countries, and they are ready to showcase their experiences and emerging innovative solutions that can fully unlock renewables potential in industry and transport sectors. And this is particularly true about this session. As Dov mentioned, in the past 4 days, we discussed innovative solutions on both supply and demand side of the energy transition. Today, we will bring it all together and we will kick off the discussion with young entrepreneurs and innovators in the renewable energy sector to share their ideas and to discuss their roles and roles of their solutions in the energy transition, including the challenges they are facing and what approaches they see can help to overcome them. IRENA Youth is organizing this session in partnership with Initiate and with the SDG 7 Youth Constituency. Initiate is a global movement that brings together startups, entrepreneurs, students, young professionals, corporate executives, public sector innovators, and investors from all over the world, with the aim of supporting the all-important entrepreneurial ecosystem and celebrating champions of innovation. And then UN SDG 7 Youth Constituency is the formal engagement mechanism for young people at the United Nations. It is mandated by the UN General Assembly to be self-organized and engage in numerous policy processes related to sustainable development, and in this case, in energy. The topic IRENA Youth Talk, together with Initiate and SDG 7 Youth Constituency brings you today, is highly relevant. As to hold temperature rise to no more than 1.5 degrees requires deep decarbonization in every sector, but also to do it in an inclusive way, engaging everyone, including youth. So today we will focus on sharing your youth innovative solution and discuss how to advance them. But before I dive into the agenda, let me reiterate some of the housekeeping items already mentioned by Dolph. So you are all muted and you will remain so throughout the event. However, there is a chat and Q&A section, and we invite you to pose questions to our panelists there. Please mention which panel discussion panelists your questions relate to. We will be monitoring your questions throughout the event and select a few. Due to time constraints, we apologize in advance if your question is not answered. But we will still use all your questions to inform our further discussions. You can also use the same function to introduce yourself and let us know where you tune in from. This is a public event. It is being recorded and live streamed. The recording will be available on demand in public domain on innovationweek.irena.org website. Please note, therefore, no Chatham House rules apply to this discussion. The agenda for today is as follows. Dolph Gillen from IRENA has already welcomed you. We will have short setting scene for each panel discussion, and each panel discussion will focus either on transport or on industry and buildings. But without any further ado, let's move right to the first panel that focuses on transport. But before I hand over to Irina Anisiet, the Associate Program Officer from IRENA, who will set the scene, we would like to play you a short video on the electric vehicles. IRENA, and particularly IRENA, carried out a significant portion of the research and analysis on mapping and understanding how technology and systemic innovation advance the deployment of EVs in the last decade, and what we can learn from that for other innovative solutions. So bear with us, technology sometimes fail us. So few messages, but IRENA will tell you more about it. IRENA, over to you now.
Thank you, Martina, very much, and hi, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce to you very briefly today part of our innovation work that we are doing here in IRENA. If we can start the slides, please. Yes, thank you. So we have been looking in the past years at innovations that help integrating more variable renewable energy, wind and solar power in systems. Wind and solar technologies are now cost competitive, and our challenge now is to integrate high share of these technologies and this generation in power systems. Globally, we have today 10% of this generation in power system, and we need to reach up to 60% by 2050 to be aligned with Paris Agreement. Therefore, we have been looking at innovations and solutions that help systems around the world integrate very high shares of wind and solar in their power systems. So we see technologies are very important. A lot of innovations in technologies are emerging. We see battery storage, electric vehicles, digital technologies. But innovation go far beyond technologies. We need innovations in business models, we need innovation in market design and regulations to be able to remunerate the technologies, and also we need new ways to operate the system to integrate this variable generation in the system. So this is what we call in IRENA systemic innovation. We need innovation in all these 4 dimensions of the system to have practical implemented solution. Next slide, please. We have been mapping all the different innovations, and we have been come up with this list of 30 innovations that are all included in the report, Innovation Landscape for a Renewable Power Future. You can find it online. It's a wealth of information there for different examples, best practices and challenges and recommendations, how to implement all these innovations. The key message is that innovations do not emerge in isolation. You need synergies between all these dimensions in order to have practical solution, as I said. Next slide, please. We have a lot of information online that it's already available. It has been launched last year and partly also this year. But I am happy to announce that this week we have launched the digital platform Innovation Toolbox. It's you can find it under www.irena.org/innovation/toolbox. Please take a look on it. It's very intuitive, very easy to use, and you can play around and find all the information that, a lot of information that is included in the report and part of our innovation work there in a very intuitive way. You can click on the innovation and see how they find out more information about them and see how they combine to form solutions. So please take a look on it. It's brand new on our website. Next slide, please. To dig a little bit deeper in transport sector, because this session it's about transport sector, and we will be hearing a lot of interesting innovations and solutions that are happening in transport. But just to give you a very brief overview, electrification of end-use sectors emerged basically as a solution to decarbonize end-use sectors due to available renewable electricity in the power system. So today we use in the transport sector only 1% electricity share, but we should reach 43% by 2050 to be aligned with Paris Agreement. And this is mainly via electric vehicles and largely passenger cars. And on the next slide, I put few information about a study we have done on the importance of smart charging for electric vehicles. Today we have a bit more than 6 million electric vehicles on the road, but we should reach over 1 billion by 2050, again to be aligned with Paris Agreement. And this represents a huge bank battery, basically. We foresee that there will be more capacity offered by these batteries from electric vehicles than stationary batteries by 2050. This is a huge opportunity for the power system, but also could be a burden if they are not charged smartly, if all of them are charged at the same time. And it has to be basically smartly managed and smartly charged. But I will not keep you too long talking about this. You find many information online. And I'm looking forward to hear today from your innovations and your ideas about how to decarbonize transport. Over to you, Martina.
Thank you very much, Irena. And indeed, innovation doesn't happen in isolation. An important message and important work on systemic innovation at IRENA. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to the moderator of the first panel, Ms. Noortje van Heijst, who is Investment Associate at Unknown Group and Ventures 1. But before I hand it over to Noortje, please don't forget to use Q&A feature to ask questions to our speakers. And now, Noortje, over to you.
Thank you so much, Martina, for your warm introduction. And it's good to see so many of you here. In the upcoming 35 minutes, 5 entrepreneurs operating at the intersection of renewable energy and transport will be sharing their entrepreneurial journey. And I have the pleasure to introduce them to you. Each founder has 5 minutes to inspire us with their innovative solution. And thereafter, we will have some time scheduled for Q&A. And as Martina already mentioned, please make sure you submit your questions in the Q&A via the chat. We will collect these and I will address them to the entrepreneurs. All right, I won't spend too much time introducing the founders and their innovation, as I assume they will do that themselves way better. First in line, Jörg van Hesbeen, co-founder of Jetlix. The floor is all yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Noortje. Can you confirm that you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. It took me some effort to set up, but it's just in time. So we at Jetlix believe in the mass adoption of electric vehicles. We're seeing that proof every day with the numbers rising. But if you go to the next slide. What is key for the mass adoption for electric vehicles is taking control of charging. And that's to make sure that the cost of charging, so the total cost of ownership, stays attractive, that we make sure that the power grid can keep up with the rise of electrification and electric vehicles, that we optimize the usage of the battery. There's a significant environmental impact of batteries still, and obviously that we match the charging of electric vehicles with renewable energy sources, so that the emissions, not only the tailpipe emissions of EVs are clean, but also the power coming from it. So that's why we believe that taking control of charging is key, and that's what we plan to achieve at scale at Jetlix. Go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. Yes. So we at Jetlix have developed a vehicle-to-grid integration platform that helps to monetize the flexibility of electric vehicle charging and helps the integration of renewable energy. And we do that by aggregating the electric vehicles in what we call a virtual power plant. So the electric vehicles and their charging becomes an alternative to conventional fossil-based power plants to keep the grid in balance and are matched with renewable energy production. And by doing this, we generate a revenue and a value. We lower the cost of charging and share this with our stakeholders, which can be OEMs, charge point operators, and parties in the energy industry. Go to the next slide. And by doing this, and for our partners, we typically do 3 things. We reduce cost, so driving an EV is more attractive. It's even more attractive compared to ICE vehicles. We provide a revenue potential, and we optimize renewables all together to achieve net zero 2050 or even faster. And if you go to the next slide. And our platform basically does this through the following business model. So on the left hand, we integrate with the telematics of electric vehicle manufacturers or the operators of charging stations, and that allows us to get telematics from the cars and control the charging process. That's something we group together and offer as a virtual power plant to the energy industry. So we make sure that the charging is orchestrated when there's, for example, an excess amount of wind or solar energy. And we are rewarded for that. So we create flexibility revenues and share that with, for example, the driver, the OEM, to enable this and do that at scale. And we already do this with 5 car manufacturers, leading brands in Europe like Tesla, Renault, BMW. Renault Nissan is also one of the investors in our company, and scaling this now across countries. And by doing this, integration partners of us, like the OEMs, can with one integration on our platform enable the service for many countries in Europe, what we are targeting right now. Go to the next slide. And obviously, it's key that we engage the EV driver for that. So on the one hand, we support fleets or shared fleets, but also the individual driver. So for that, we have our own app for rapid prototyping, but we are more and more engaging towards a solution where our platform and services and apps are branded by our partners. So for example, for Renault and also upcoming for Hyundai, we provide a branded version of our app. So we can engage the individual EV driver, but also with some OEMs who are already taking the next step where our service is embedded in their own integrated service. So this is what we plan to do at scale. And this is how we not only make sure that cars are not running on fossil fuels anymore, but on electricity, but also taking the next step that this electricity is clean and that the cars are an asset for the grid, not a threat, but they're an asset for the grid and can help to integrate more renewable energies wherever they are charged. So that's a short pitch on Jetlix. We are one of the leaders in this software leaders in this domain. The advice I also have, they asked me, what advice do you have to other entrepreneurs or inspire people, is that focus on solving a problem, look for new market dynamics. A few years ago, we noticed that, for example, the connectivity of vehicles was a new thing, but that we expected that this, especially for electric vehicles, was becoming, let's say, the standard. So we worked in the early days. We only worked with Tesla, which had proper APIs and vehicle connectivity. But later, when EVs became more dominant, we got more interest from more OEMs coming on board, and then our early day work really paid off. So that's so there's one short advice I have to the crowd, and I give the word back to you, Noortje. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jorg. It's very interesting to see the journey that you've had with Jetlix and where you are standing now. Really like also your advice to the entrepreneurs and people here in the audience. I'd like to give the word to the next entrepreneur, Kimosop Chapkoit, founder and CEO at Ecoboda. Kimosop, the word to you.
Thank you for the introduction. I hope you can hear and see me, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Next slide. Well, at Ecoboda, we are building Africa's first connected data and behavior-driven electric motorcycle taxis designed and assembled in Nairobi, Kenya. Well, the main issue is that we are building this for the African cities, and we are targeting motorcycle taxi riders with our innovation, we reduce the battery range anxiety by using battery swaps as opposed to having the riders wait for the batteries to charge themselves. This innovation is necessitated by the need to have more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable last-mile mobility for African cities. Next slide, please. Ecoboda is solving 4 major problems faced by our cities, riders, commuters, and women. These are the huge carbon footprint from motorcycle taxis, which outnumber cars 5 to 1 in most of the East African cities, the lack of capital to purchase motorcycle taxis by youth and women, alongside the huge spend on fuel and servicing by the motorcycle taxi riders, hence the need to reduce their daily, which leads to reduced daily earnings. Also, we are tackling the problem of lack of regulation and order in the motorcycle industry. This leads to unsafe and unreliable commute to most of the users in the city. So, well, how are we solving these problems? By developing a reliable electric motorcycle taxi for the African market, we are not only fighting climate change, but also bringing about improved human well-being, economic empowerment, and social equity in a sector which directly employs more than 1 million youth and more than 4 million in East Africa. For us, it's important that innovations and solutions and policies geared towards climate change or climate action include well thought out economic tools for improving lives and experiences. With that in mind, we developed a motorcycle which is accompanied by 90% credit facility to the riders. In this model, we enable the riders to use the asset and make little daily repayments through M-Pesa, then get fully on the Ecoboda once they finish repaying. Next slide, please. So why are we targeting our cities? Africa is experiencing rapid rates of urbanization with annual urban population growth of up to 4%. With this, challenges around mobility are inevitable. Also, cities contribute a major part of CO2 equivalent emissions, and with the anticipated congestion and need for more vehicles, this will continue to go up. And since we are an impact-based company, it therefore makes more sense for us to tackle the problem where the impact is huge. Also, with our connected green electric motorcycles, taxis, African cities are able to make decisions faster, tackle insecurity, and optimize last-mile public transport for a better future. Next slide, please. Here, well, there was a question about what would be my advice to the youth and also give them motivation on innovations. Well, I would say that the future is ours. Our ideas and innovations matter. We need to have a vision for post-pandemic mobility in Africa and for the rest of the world. COVID has shown us that the so-called rigid infrastructure is not as embedded as we thought. Everything changed within weeks. So we need to have bold policies, and that will lead to transformations, because I think we no longer need incremental changes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim, for your elaborative talk about your company. And what I found what strikes me is that you're providing a solution for inclusiveness while also making a step towards more renewables in mobility. And I am really fond of that, so keep the good work up. I will introduce our next entrepreneur in line, Sasringa De Silva from Sri Lanka. He is founder of Electric Tuk-Tuk. The word is all yours.
Thank you, Nore. I think I spelled your pronounce your name right. My name is Sasiranga De Silva, and I'm the founder of Thermalar Industries Private Limited, a company that focuses on designing and manufacturing electric vehicle powertrains. And at the moment, we have developed this conversion unit to convert conventional tuk-tuks, or we call it here the three-wheelers, or some call it auto rickshaws. So the conventional ones are equipped with engines, and we have designed this powertrain to convert them into electric. Can you proceed with the slides, please? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So next slide, please. This is the introduction. So to tell you a bit about tuk-tuks, there are, sorry, the previous slide. It's going a little fast, sorry. The second slide. Yeah, that one. Keep it. Present context. So to tell you a bit about the tuk-tuks, they are a very energy efficient commodity because the weight of the vehicle is about 350 kilograms, and it can carry 4 people in it, including the driver, compared to a conventional automobile where it weighs about 1,200 to 1,500 kilograms. So it wastes a lot of energy carrying on that mass as well. So this is a very efficient commodity, and it's a good way of connecting your first mile, last mile leads, where people can conveniently get from home to the train station or the bus station. And once you get off the station, you can use a tuk-tuk to get into your office or wherever the destination is. So it's a very good method of promoting public transport as well. And in Sri Lanka, we have about 1.1 million tuk-tuks altogether, including 4-strokes and 2-strokes. And we have about 300,000 2-stroke tuk-tuks, which are very harmful to the environment. So the government actually have banned the importation of 2-stroke tuk-tuks into the country because of the harmful nature of them. Next slide, please. So we have identified the problem with having the conventional tuk-tuks here. One is from the driver's point of view, the petrol prices keep on increasing, so it's a heavy burden on them. And then, as I said, the importation of 2-stroke tuk-tuks are banned, but still we have about 300,000 tuk-tuks on the road. So drivers fear that the government will actually ban the registration renewal of those tuk-tuks as well. So those tuk-tuks might become obsolete in the future. There's a risk of that. And then, of course, they have this difficulty in passing the emission testing. Now, in Sri Lanka, every year you have to get this emission testing done to renew your registration. Now, these old tuk-tuks, they have problems, and it's quite hard to get through the emission testing. So they have to do all sorts of the fine-tuning, engine tuning, and all that. And they have you carry an extra burden of spending on that just to get through the emission testing. And from the government point of view, of course, this has become a huge burden on meeting the global emission standards. Of course, Sri Lanka is a part of the Paris Agreement, and they have come up with a number of policy level changes in meeting these emission standards. So one good method would be to convert these tuk-tuks. And also, these are the major noise pollution contributor in the city areas, in the major cities in Sri Lanka. So a simple solution that we have come up with is to electrify these tuk-tuks. The benefits to the driver would mainly come in as a brand new tuk-tuk rather than the ones they have used with an old engine. So some of them, these tuk-tuks are 10, 15 years old with good chassis, but the engines have worn out. So once we convert, it will be as good as a new tuk-tuk. And we have done a cost calculation because running with electricity is much cheaper here. So according to the calculation, we have found that they will save about $1,000 annually. And we have also done a life cycle assessment to see the environmental impact of these conversions. And from that, we have found that per unit converted, there will be about 65% carbon dioxide equivalent reduction. And also, if we convert half of the fleet that is in Sri Lanka, the carbon dioxide reduction would be about 1 million tons annually. Next slide, please. So what does the customer demand? So we have done a survey, and we have from that we have found that they roughly do about 100 kilometers daily on hires in Colombo city. So this is where in Colombo is where we are going to start this project from. So we have designed a battery pack to meet that requirement. So per charge, this tuk-tuk can do about 100 to 110 kilometers. Then we are using a lithium-ion battery with a 5-year warranty, because drivers, they will worry about the battery that we're using. They always ask, how long is this going to last? Because they have to invest some money in this. And they also ask about the electrical safety of this, because it's a new concept to these drivers here, the tuk-tuk drivers. And all these powertrains that we have developed, we have adhered to ISO and SAE standards, the Society of Automotive Engineers standards given on developing electric vehicle powertrains. And of course, the performance, we have matched the performance of an ordinary brand new engine tuk-tuk. So the performance, the safety, the range requirement, everything is met with this conversion. Next slide, please. What we do here is basically we have come up with another conversion method with a lot of R&D, because I know there are off-the-shelf conversions for these tuk-tuks which you can buy, but I know a number of people try doing that. The problem is the Sri Lanka, in the terrain is a little different. We have very steep hills, so we have with our conversion we have basically designed everything to suit the Sri Lankan terrain. For these conversions, the only thing that we import is the lithium-ion cell and the motor. The battery pack is assembled here. All the electronics, the motor controller, and the display which you can see there, all are developed in-house in Sri Lanka. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I finish, let me tell you a bit about where we are now. At the moment, we are converting 5 tuk-tuks to be sold out to our initial customers. Surprisingly, not to the tuk-tuk drivers. Well, we can't really say surprisingly because of the conversion cost. Early adopters in this project are the ones who run resorts and hotels in Sri Lanka, which promote tourism here. Probably because of the cost of conversion, of course, the affordability for the tuk-tuk drivers is a little less at the moment with the conversion cost. So we are actually trying to work out with the government in trying to get tax concession on the components that we import, and also trying to convince them to give a subsidy to the drivers who actually want to get these conversions done. So it will be beneficial to the government, to the public, to the environment, and also to the drivers. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And I think from your story, I understand that this collaboration between private and public markets is so important in moving towards a more electrified mobility. So it's also good to see in the audience that we have representatives of both here in this session. Again, if there are any questions for the panelists, please share them in the chat. For now, I would like to move on to the fourth entrepreneur, Isaac Oyedukun, CEO of Trek Scooters.
Morning, everyone. I'd like Esther to go first. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Esther Ahindaro, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Trek Scooters. So I'll be introducing Trek Scooters, and Isaac was the CEO would talk about our decarbonization goals and our innovation. So Trek Scooter is a Nigerian-based modern transportation company. We solely leveraging improved and eco-friendly technology. We're actually the pioneer of e-scooter sharing in Nigeria, and we're paving the way for micromobility in Nigeria and Africa, because micromobility is really an unknown terrain in Nigeria, and we're trying to be the pioneer in the sector by bringing in an e-scooter sharing service. Our target audience are basically campuses and residential estates. And the reason why these are target audience are because they have the necessary facilities for our scooters to actually operate. They have the security, they have electricity, and they have good roads, because road is one of the problem with it in actually launching our products in Nigeria and Africa. The big picture of Trek Scooter is actually to create one of the fastest eco-friendly means of mobility within community, hence reducing traffic congestion and enhancing the quality of life of an average Nigerian. Our services are actually in line with the United Nations SDG 7, 11, and 13 goals. Next slide, please. So what's really differentiated us from our competitors and our substitute? The first one is our technology. We're an e-scooter sharing business, but it's app-based. So our customers can only access our services using technology, and that's by downloading the Trek app, and through that they can access the ride. And this is actually really important in COVID-19 times. So in as much as we're trying our best with renewable energy, our scooters are also helping with social distancing. Our clients don't need to interface with other people for them to get on our scooters. Also, our product is electric. It's different from the past alternatives. This is an electric scooters, which leads to zero carbon emission. There is no pollution and there is no noise. So this is really different from market. Also, it's an electric scooters. Our target audience, 70% of our target audience are youths who like to keep a fit and healthy lifestyle, and they can do this having fun on Trek scooters. So we're also promoting the fit and healthy lifestyles using our scooter. And like I said earlier, we're the pioneer of micromobility in Nigeria. This comes with a lot of awareness. We have to create awareness, educate the population what micromobility is and why they have to go for scooters rather than jumping on their cars if they have to go on last mile walks or last mile transactions. And what also makes us different is our passionate and dedicated team. Trek Scooters was actually birthed by 4 passionate individuals who are all youth: Isaac, S, Praise, and Joel. It's actually self-funded. So the first phase of the project, which is a pilot phase, would actually be rolled out in less than a month. And it's actually self-funded by these 4 individuals. But aside from these partners, we also have volunteers. We have 23 strong volunteers, and these guys believe in the dream of Trek Scooters, and they also want a better Nigeria, a Nigeria that has a clean environment, that it's without pollution and it has zero carbon emission. So the partners and these volunteers have been the one working on this product from ideation to pre-launch. So I'll be handing this over to Isaac to talk about our decarbonization goals and our innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. I can boldly affirm that with us at Trek Scooters, since this project is actually novel, by 2020, it will usher greatly the decade of ambitious action in combating the problem of transportation in Nigeria, and also, combating the problem of climate change. Next slide, please. Okay, our decarbonization goal at Trek Scooters. Currently, we are using lithium batteries to power our electric scooters with the use of our app. And this, will lead to zero emission of CO2, and also there will be no noise pollution, as we can see in the traditional means of transportation that's currently, in the country. And also, the carbon per capita in Nigeria stands at 0.66. And by having Trek Scooters on board, this number, we try to reduce it by 2030 in line with the UN sustainable goals. And in future, we are looking for a way whereby, you know, we can shift more into solar panel, because Nigeria is where you can have, 20, all year round solar system. The sun is really doing well in Nigeria. So, we want to shift to this area, of using solar panel. So that can be powered by solar panels, and also, repurposing our scooter batteries, in the future. So that's our future, plan for trail scooters. Next slide, please. Okay, so the problem currently we're having is, I know you can believe with me, like about 53% of urban residents, have convenient access to public transportation. With transporters coming on board, this number, lots of residents in urban centers will be able to have more sustainable transportation to serve them in the last mile, activities. Because in Nigeria, this is a country whereby people just take their cars, just for a short trip. Even to go to the supermarket, they want to go on their car. So with us scooters, we want to encourage this idea whereby people can use micromobility to go about their daily activity. Also, 9 out of 10 urban residents breathe polluted air. So with our clean environmental sustainable projects, we want to give a better life, a cleaner environment to the people in Nigeria and also at large in Africa. And also in the pie chart on the right hand side of the presentation, you can see currently Nigeria emits, in terms of transportation, it emits about 31.6, percent of the CO2 into the atmosphere. This is really huge, and by 2030, we want to have this number, this percentage, so that we actually decrease the emission in terms of transportation with the help of our electric scooters. And also, trail scooter wants to impact the community. So by impacting the community, we want to, aside giving the zero emission, noise pollution, and all of that, we want to also create a job for students. So we create jobs for students, especially on campuses and the areas we are also launching. Skill set, also enhancing their capacity building and nation building at large. The social impact can be seen in educating the populace on micromobility, because there's less or little knowledge about micromobility, sustainability in Africa, especially in Nigeria. So also we're planning to host a global program that we center on micromobility in Africa and also in Nigeria. So this is on the way, and we are also planning towards that. Most importantly, our techpreneurship ideation, because we are going on campuses, we want to inculcate teach students how they can do things on their own, how they can fix our electric scooters, and also how they can be entrepreneurs even while on campuses. So these are what we have laid out in our plans. And also on the global level, we want to have a concerted effort with the government agencies and also policymakers in combating the problem of climate change, especially in Africa, because Africa stands to be, at the forefront of, battling with the, problems of climate change. The mitigation process is really, is really low in Nigeria, and also adaptation is really critical in Nigeria. So, we're trying to drive the awareness with the policymakers to achieve this. Next slide, please. And also for this, just advice for people out there, youth out there who wants to, go into this type of, project. Passion is really important, because this will sustain you in storming days. And also you have to do a thorough research on the products you want to launch, the community you're going to, and also the society, and also, your target audience and all of that. This is important for you. And also you have to be creative and dynamic in your project that you're doing at any point in time. So, before you invest your time, before you invest your time in any idea, you have to see it scalable, because, you're looking at the, future of your project. So this is really important. And above all, connection is key, and also, building connections and nourishing them is key. Thank you so much for listening. And we say, think globally and trek locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Next in line, Bhaskar Deo from EDRV. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Norche, and also thanks to IRENA and Initiate for giving us the opportunity to talk about eDrive this morning. Excuse me. My name is Bhaskar. I'm one of the co-founders of eDrive. We are a technology company based in the Netherlands. And our mission is, next slide, please, is to make it easy, feasible, possible, and faster to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. And let me start off with talking a little bit about why this is important. We heard this morning from IRENA. So surface transport still consists of over 20% of emissions for major countries here in the EU, also the US. We've made steady progress over the last 10 years, decarbonizing power generation. But what that has resulted in is transportation must now be the major sector that we tackle. And the way we believe here at eDrive, this will be possible is through electrification. So I want to tell you about how eDrive is making it possible to achieve these emission reductions through the switch to EVs globally. Next slide, please. Electrification is happening. Here in the European Union, it's very hard to miss the shift. If you look at both countries, we're reaching the tipping point of almost 10, 15, and in some cases, even 50% of all vehicle sales being electric. European Union has also made it the focus for the incentive programs that are coming out of the pandemic to particularly boost EV sales. But all around the world, not just here in the major developed economies, but from the Philippines, China, Nigeria, Morocco, India, there's a new breed of entrepreneurs who are emerging, and they are keen to offer EV charging as a business and to serve the needs of their fleets, their customers, their cities, organizations. So Ali, Aaron, Gail, and Sharat, this is something that they all have in common, and that common ambition is to become successful EV entrepreneurs. And what eDrive does is to give them the tools that they need to run a successful business. Next slide, please. So our product is a suite of tools that entrepreneurs need to run an EV charging business. It is software as a service charging management, which means anyone in the world can set up network charging within days. We support the globally emerging standards for charging protocols called the Open Charge Point Protocol, and it's compatible with over 80% of the charging stations that are manufactured. Not only that, we also give the entrepreneurs the tools they need to offer best-in-class functionality to the drivers or the users of electric vehicles. And for example, Plug and Go is a new feature we've announced. It essentially gives users the kind of experience that a Tesla driver has when they just go in and they plug in their car in a supercharger. We aspire to bring that to the driver of every electric vehicle. We're also one of the first public APIs which allow anyone to build on top of eDrive. And so, for example, if there's an entrepreneur somewhere or a developer somewhere in the world who sees a specific use case where EV charging must be adapted to their requirements, they can simply build on top of eDrive rather than starting from scratch. In addition to all of this, we provide the common functionality around enabling entrepreneurs to charge people through credit cards, through integrations with pay-as-you-go systems, and so on and so forth, and have the common functionality around connectivity management and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So we don't stop there. Our architecture is unique in the sense that eDrive is one of the first charging management solutions that combine both access to the network of the chargers themselves, but also the vehicles. So we heard this morning from Jedlix, and you can already imagine the powerful set of features that can be offered when you control both the charging infrastructure as well as the vehicle. And so what eDrive does is through our APIs, we enable a very wide variety of applications, which can include, starting from smart charging to demand response and ultimately vehicle to grid when this becomes more and more adopted by a larger variety of OEMs. It also enables the production of customized applications, which could be essentially deployed in a business environment, for example, with an entire enterprise resource planning system, security system, access systems, and so on and so forth. And we've also been building a suite of consumer applications in-house, such as integration of EV charging with Slack, Telegram, which also gives users a convenience around how they interact with their EV charging experience. So essentially what eDrive does is to combine vehicle charging endpoints and give a 360-degree integration possibility, both from an energy supply point of view and also from a consumer point of view. What I want to just end with saying the framework that eDrive's architecture enables will, we hope, pave the way for greater penetration of renewables in the future, and by really enabling electric vehicles to become responsible members of the EV or the electricity distribution ecosystem, and that's sort of our objective. I was asked to share some words about advice to youth. If I can look at my own personal journey, I would say the 2020 year will probably be etched on many of our memories for years to come, as one of the the times when the severe impacts, not just from COVID, but also climate change, became something that affects us on a personal level, on a day-to-day life. Many years ago, when I was starting my career, it was a challenge to look for a career in sustainability or in clean energy, but I don't think that's the case anymore. So my advice would really be to go and identify the issues that you care about, whether it is in clean energy, sustainability, clean fashion, food, and very soon, every one of these aspects of our life will have an impact on energy, on climate change. And I think I would encourage all of you to look for what those opportunities are and go ahead and work there. With that, I'll pass you back to Norce, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks a lot for sharing your story, and also for the rest of the entrepreneurs. Again, thank you a lot. We also have some questions coming in. I will take this and use them in the next phase of this session. And I would like to give the word back shortly to Martina right now.
Fantastic journeys of the youth around the world on their innovation and how they're trying to shift the mindset and behavior of a lot of people of their age, but also different age. Really well done. And now, because we are running a little out of time, let's go directly to the panel discussion. We have approximately 20 minutes for that. So I will give floor back to Norce, who will then introduce you to the panelists. Norce, over to you.
Thanks a lot. So we have two more people joining us for the panel, and I would like to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So we have Philippe van Giel, Secretary General of AVER, and Alexander Kerner, a Program Officer at UNEP. They will share their views on the urgent need to decarbonize transport in all over the world and the role of renewable energy in this transition. To start with, Philippe, could you please give a short introduction of yourself and share some more about the work you do with AVER?
Hi, thank you, Norce, for the introduction. Also very inspired with the first speakers, of course. It gives already a nice view of what's going on e-mobility sector. So AVER is the Association for Electromobility in Europe. We found origins in the academic sector about 42 years ago. We started to look what alternatives could be possible to on oil products, because we see that transport is only delivered by petrol products in that case. So I think we have gone through a whole journey, and we are now definitely answering on the climate change with new kinds of transport where e-mobility is taking the lead.
Thank you, Philippe, for the introduction. Also introducing Alexander Kerner. Alexander, can you please also shortly introduce yourself, and then we will move into the questions and the panel discussion.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. So I'm Alex. I'm part of the Sustainable Mobility Unit, which is about 20 staff in UN Environment Program here in Nairobi in Kenya. We're working on all kinds of sustainable mobility, including electric mobility, non-motorized transportation, but also cleaner fuels and vehicles. So I'm going to talk a little more afterwards about why I think there's really an urgent need to decarbonize transportation in low and middle income countries. But what I can already say right now is that as we speak, we are on the way of introducing a global worldwide program, which is funded by the Global Environment Facility to do country projects for e-mobility in about 29 countries worldwide. That program is in cooperation with the European Commission funded Solutions Plus project. They are doing about 9 city projects. So in total, we will have about 40 projects in countries worldwide with a grant funding of $80 million to do electric mobility training, capacity building, to do demonstration projects in all of these countries, to do policy development, to implement financial mechanisms together with big financiers such as the development banks, and to work on sustainability of e-mobility, meaning integration of renewable power, and also work on batteries. So that program is going to start implementation early next year. We're just about to submit the final product for all this. That's just to say, it's really nice that this event is organized right now, because it provides a great opportunity to talk about this. And yes, low and middle income countries, I think, are very, very important. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this in the coming next minutes. Thanks.
Thanks, Alex, for the introduction, and great news that those facilities will become available. To move to a couple of questions that we received during the pitches. First of all, a question from Paul Muya, directed to Sasir Ranga. He was wondering what the cost of the conversion of the tuk-tuks is. So when you like have to convert these tuk-tuks into and make them fully electrical, what are the costs involved?
At the moment, the conversion unit is sold at $2,000, and we are still working on bringing it down to roughly around $1,500, $1,700. That is the target price we're looking at when it comes to selling it to the drivers, because the tuk-tuk drivers belong to the lower income class. So we have done a survey with them. So the possible price for them to afford and go ahead with this conversion is about $1,500. So at $2,000, there are people who run these resorts and hotels for tourism. They are quite keen on buying this. But when we want to expand and when we really want to acquire our target market, we have to bring it further down. So we're working with the government. It is possible, but once we get tax concessions on the components that are imported, it is possible to bring it down to $1,700. So with a bit more continuous R&D and maybe negotiating with the suppliers and maybe scale up, we hope to bring it down to $1,500.
Cool, thank you. Thanks a lot. I was wondering, Philippe, where do you see the greatest opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurship in electrical vehicles?
Well, to answer or tackle maybe the question in that sense, we don't have to longer talk about vehicle at its is. Because if you talk about electric vehicles, we automatically think about a car or a bus, but there is so much more going on. Because what's actually happening, we don't have to think that we are putting the battery in a car. No, we are building a completely different aspect. We are building a car around the battery in this case. And this makes it so challenging. It's not no longer a mobility object, but it's also an energy object that we already saw from the presentations. the vehicle will be a part of the solution of the energy questions that are raising, a part of the energy solution. And also it contains so much data. There is also a different exchange of data. When the car connects to the charger, there is a data exchange. And also this part is an answer to the future questions. So we have to rethink when we think about, transport, cars. No, we have to think a completely different way. It's a solution on energy. It's a solution on many transitions that we are going through. And it makes it also exciting, and it makes it also challenging for the young people coming on the market. It's we often do think in a classical size of, okay, we have transport, we have energy sector, but these sectors are so merging, overlapping, and this makes it very challenging for the future.
Cool. Yeah, I think I would be interested to also hear Alex, his opinion on this same question, to hear a bit on how you see the role of innovation and entrepreneurship, maybe from your perspective in developing countries as well. You're still muted, Alex.
Very good hint. So entrepreneurship innovation is really the key for all of these things. I would like to elaborate a couple of minutes on why we think actual low and middle income countries are really a good place to start with much higher shares of electrification than we see it in, let's say, developed markets. I mean, first of all, today, like transport sector is maybe 25% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Now, in many low and middle income countries, transport sector has actually a much higher share on emissions. Yeah? That is 30%, 40%, and it's also one of the sectors which is the fastest growing. Yeah? If you look at buildings, residential, all these kind of other things, you compare it, transport is actually really a very fast growing sector. Yeah? If you project it a little bit, like in 2050, there might be 3 out of 5 cars or 3 out of 5 vehicles being in actual today's low and middle income countries. So really, it doesn't work without these countries. If we're talking about global climate change and then the Paris Agreement, all this, we need to have something going on in low and middle income countries. Yeah? At the same time, I think they're really at a very sweet spot because shared mobility has a much higher standing in these countries. Yeah? I mean, car ownership is much lower, whereby we have like 500 cars per 1,000 inhabitants in Europe. In a country like Kenya, it's probably 20 or 25 or 50. Yeah. So shared mobility, meaning taxis, meaning 2 and 3 wheelers, meaning buses, that's really very pertinent in daily life, which is very good. And on the other side, that's all vehicles which can be relatively easily electrified, because you don't have that need for an extensive public charging network, which for sure is not going to come up very quickly. You don't go these very long distances. That's all pretty set up mission profiles. So really, these vehicles, they are great for electrification. Yeah. Now, another very interesting thing also from IRENA's perspective. I mean, most low and middle income countries have actually pretty clean grids. I mean, now if you look at Africa, East Africa, a country like Kenya, there's about 60% renewables in the grid. Ethiopia is 90% renewables. A lot of countries actually have electricity oversupply, like Kenya has a 30% overcapacity. And that's equally the case for a lot of Latin American countries, for a lot of South Asian countries. So the actual today's power grid is pretty clean. Yeah? So there are huge benefits everywhere, and it was really great to listen to Eko Boda before talking about M-Pesa. Yeah? M-Pesa is a phone-based payment scheme everybody uses in Kenya. Yeah? You can go very remote into the country, you buy a Coke for 30 shillings at the stand, and you can buy with a mobile phone immediately. Yeah? That's not even existing in Europe. These connecting these technologies, shared mobility, electronic payment, microfinance, very small finance, because of course purchase power is a big issue. Connecting rural electrification. Now that we have batteries, for example, in a motorcycle, I mean that can all be a system which can play out nicely. And with a solar panel now costing $100 for 150 watts. That is that's becoming really accessible. Yeah, that is why we now see that big financial institutions capital, venture capital. That's all. They're all interested in what's happening. Yeah. So really, it's a great place. It's a great topic to talk about, and it's moving very fast right now. And I think what is very, very important is that we don't talk so much about climate change and all this, yeah. Because at the end of the day, that border driver doesn't really think about climate change. Yeah, he wants to have a taxi, a vehicle, an electric motorcycle or electric three-wheeler, which makes his daily living. And I think, again, there's huge opportunities in electric mobility, because I think a driver can earn more with an electric vehicle if that's a mass-produced, tailor-made thing. You don't have all these fuel costs. You will have lower maintenance costs. I think there are really so many win-win situations which can create it all over the board that, yeah, e-mobility in low and middle income countries is kind of a no-brainer, actually, I would say.
Cool, interesting. And to add on that, there are a couple of questions also from the audience on the strategy and plan for EV projects in low development countries, and also these financial program that you're talking about. How will those resources and experts and financial resources be divided amongst the countries? And are countries such as Nepal and Kenya on the list, or how does that work?
Okay, so JEF is a very distinct agency, yeah. So that is basically under the climate negotiations, the fund which is pledged up by donor countries each 4 years. Under this fund, all countries have distinct allocations. Each country has a certain budget. Each country which is eligible for the JEF has a certain budget and can do something with that budget, either on climate change or on biodiversity or on land degradation. So there's this question of how is that distributed. It is already distributed. Yeah, this is allocations to countries. Now, each country can use these allocations, and normally there's a lot of competition around it, because these funds are rather small. Like a country like Kenya probably has 10-15 million JEF allocation for 4 years. Now, it's up to the country what kind of projects they're going to develop with these funds. So what we did over the last 2.5 years is basically talking to countries and trying to convince them to use part of these funds to do electric mobility projects. So that is the way it works a little bit. Yeah, but this will not be the last big program working on e-mobility. What we are trying to do in our global program is we have those country projects on the ground, and then on the other side we have a global support program around it, and that global support program involves international experts and national experts being organized in working groups, but then also we're going to develop 4 platforms which are organizing events in all of the in 4 continents, hosted by, for example, ADB in Asia, by EBRD in Europe, by us in Africa, and by Centro Mario Molina in Latin America. And here what we try to do is making exactly that connection between putting in place rather small demonstration projects, but taking the investors at the hand and invite them to follow these projects over the course of 4 years, so that they actually gain confidence in spending money. Yeah? And there's certainly not a lack of money, but there's a lack of investment opportunities. And we try to show to investors, look, come to our events, look what's happening in all these countries, see these startups doing fleets, doing ride-hailing applications, doing whatever kind of things, how it works. And yeah, I think that will be pretty successful.
All right, thank you. Bhaskar, I was wondering, because you also have a finance advisory background, how attractive do you think is this decarbonization of transport to venture capital and corporate venture capital firms? And are they looking to invest in startups from the private sector?
Sure. I mean, that might be a question I might ask back to you, but let me take a stab at it. Nortje, I think, well, first of all, I think I want to echo a lot of the points that Alex, you just made a few minutes ago. Definitely the shift to electric mobility. I think of course, being buoyed by a lot of the incentive programs. At the end of the day, it really boils down to the unit economics. Like if you're running a fleet operation today with electric vehicles as opposed to internal combustion engine vehicles, the reason you do that is because per kilometer, it actually costs you less, and your maintenance costs are less. And I think investors, whether they are venture capital type or corporate venture, they're seeing that as an opportunity, and they're seeing that there is a return. And let me take an example from emerging markets. Let me talk about India, and we've heard a lot about what's happening in Africa. And the same story in India has been around the shift to EVs starting at the last mile connectivity level, starting with two-wheelers, three-wheelers, where, again, echoing a lot of the points, Alex, you just made, the economics are such that the CapEx, the capital expenditure, is not very high, the utilization is very high, and then that makes a very strong case for electrification. Now, a lot of companies have been able to see a very niche requirement and define their business case around catering to, say, pick up and drop, where they may have a very predictable route where vehicles are going for dispatch, picking up employees, coming back to offices, and have just electrified all of that. And we've seen some very new business models emerge for companies, lithium being one of them out of India, where there's been a successful investment, even though the overall penetration of EVs in India remains quite low. So I think the investors are definitely seeing the opportunity, but I also think that we're still in the early stages of the transition. So as someone who's kind of in the market looking for an investment right now, I would definitely also urge investors to take that longer term view. And I know sometimes at least on the VC side, that's something that doesn't always align. But if you can look beyond 2024, 2025, I think we would all really see the opportunity starts to be very exciting for entrepreneurs, for investors.
Thanks. Yeah, from a venture capital perspective myself, I also see this transition of more impact-related investors standing up, also investors which typically have a 5 to 7 year view on investing and actually expanding also this window to make sure they are part of the future. So I think that's a very good way to also support these entrepreneurs in the earlier stages. I would like to ask Sasiranga, as you are also a lecturer to a lot of students in engineering, what do you tell these younger people and students on how they can be part of the electrification of mobility?
Well, I'm of course trying to do this from a middle-income country with minimum amount of resources. So I think I can give some advices to students and entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who are trying to get into this electric vehicle market or to tackle climate change and come up with a viable product. I have faced all sorts of problems, and most of you new entrepreneurs and students must be facing at this moment, particularly when it comes to electric vehicle transportation. The infrastructure is not yet there. The lack of charging stations, people question about the range. They have this thing called the range anxiety and all sorts of problems. And of course, on top of that, you have these government policies to deal with and all these barriers that you have to overcome. And when you try the product, the lithium and battery costs is another problem that we have. So you have to build a product that can actually compete with the existing engined vehicles. So you have to come up with a competitive price. All these problems are there. But if you study the EV market for the past decade or the past 5 years, you realize that things have changed drastically. The number of charging stations have come up even in our country. We have a number of companies that provide charging stations starting from Colombo, and we have a number of charging stations throughout the country. and the local electricity supply and the Ceylon Electricity Board also have taken up the challenge, and they have also started establishing electric charging stations. And then if you look at the electric, what do you call the lithium-ion battery prices, if you compare that, that also have the cost of the battery cells have come down drastically. So we can say that things are improving for the favor of entrepreneurs and inventors and students and all these like-minded people who are trying to establish a venture that actually co-benefit and try to tackle climate change. So even though you're going through these struggles, what I would say is that the future is, of course, going to be greener, and whatever the problems that you face, no matter what, don't give up, because you're working for a worthy cause. So keep on moving forward and take whatever you take all these barriers that is faced in front of you as challenges, overcome them. The final advice is never to give up. Keep on moving.
Thanks a lot. Maybe as a last question to Philippe, I just, as this topic is also about the youth and the role of the youth and entrepreneurs in the whole transition, I was wondering if you have some advice for those people.
It's a very good question, and it starts off with perception about e-mobility. We see too often still in social media, especially criticism on, yeah, dirty batteries, what will be the next step, taxes on electricity, also what the topic that has been indicated by Sangsi Ranga from, yeah, range anxiety. So there is also still the disbelief in the success of e-mobility. On the other hand, we also need products that are accessible for everyone. It's good to see that there is more electric vehicles coming on the market, but they're often too often, in my opinion, not covering the whole necessity range that we need. We don't all need a Tesla that can drive in 2 seconds 100 kilometers per hour. It's nice, of course, to know that it's possible, but we have so much more needs than only those products. And it's also an important message from our side. We are in a transition period, and it's often from top to bottom in product level. There's a lot of challenges on infrastructure as well, on charging infrastructure, for example. But it means that this transition needs so much knowledge, so much new education as well, and also on schools, university has to answer for this. Today, you cannot study e-mobility. It's not known. It's missing. It's a missing aspect, and we need to address this.
Thanks a lot. I think that are great closing words to end this panel. Over to Martina.
Thank you, Norcha, and all our distinguished speakers and innovators. You all kick off the session with many inspiring solutions, but also positive messages. Thank you very much. And due to lack of time, let's go directly to our next panel that focuses on solutions in industry and buildings. But before I give floor to Elena Ocenit, Associate Program Officer from IRENA, who will share with you IRENA's work on how to decarbonize industry with renewables, let's play another short video with key messages from our work. And again, please bear with us. Technology makes different tricks on us. Can I ask the host to pass me the presenter rights, because they were taken from me and I cannot play the video. Thank you. Okay, and it happened again that I lost the rights. Thank you. Okay, and I'm back. And let's now go to the panel number 2. Please, Elena, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Martina. My name is Elena Oceanic, and it is my pleasure now to provide you with an overview of technology-driven innovations for the building and industry sector. At IRENA, we have developed a comprehensive analytical framework to map the path to achieve the Paris Agreement to keep well below 2 degrees temperatures rise. And while this looks challenging, it is achievable with the right policy support. And in fact, we estimate that the renewables could provide 60% of the emissions reductions that we need. However, there are also a growing number of countries that have more ambitious targets, and they support the likelihood of holding temperatures increase to 1.5 degrees. And what this means is that all sectors of the economy need to decarbonize by 2050. We have already heard in the previous panel that the electrification of transport is already showing early signs of disruptive acceleration. However, renewables are still growing too slowly in other energy consuming sectors like transport and buildings. And reaching zero, that's the last part that you can see on the screen, the gray part of this pathway, requires to reach zero emissions in all sectors. And it will be challenging in all sectors. However, in some cases, we have a clear vision of how we can achieve that. So if we can please go to the next slide. We know that in the power sector, and IRENA has mentioned earlier in the previous panel, that the costs of renewable mean that by 2050, in fact, 80% of the power could be sourced from renewables. And we also see more and more countries that have even more ambitious policy goals, and they have set for themselves a target to achieve 100% renewable power in their systems in the next few decades. And if we have a closer look now at the building sector, we know that most of the buildings would need to be zero energy through high efficiency, but also through building integrated renewables. So retrofitting, refurbishing, but also renovating buildings will also be a key part of this. We would also need stricter standards for domestic appliances, but also for emissions from new buildings. So based on our flagship project called Innovation Landscape, in which we have mapped 30 key innovations that can help to integrate solar and wind into today's power systems. Since last year, we have started to apply this toolbox to countries, first in Sweden and now in 5 African countries. And among these countries, we have looked into Rwanda's power system, and we have identified various innovations across the entire value chain, which is what you can see in green on this slide. In addition to this, we have also identified innovations to increase the renewable uptake in other end-use sectors like buildings, but also to provide access to electricity. And just as an example, in Rwanda, the building sector consumes the largest share of the total energy, and it is mainly generated from traditional biomass. So as a result, the building sector is in fact the sector where renewables can play the biggest role. So a key part of this effort is providing universal access to electricity through solar home system, but also solar rooftop, solar mini grids, but also providing more energy efficient lighting, solar water heaters, and cleaner cooking technologies. And let's have now a look on the next slide at the industry sector, where things don't look so good and the situation is more complex. Now, the industry accounts globally for around 28% of the CO2 emissions. And in fact, there are 4 industrial sectors in particular, which account to almost 3/4 of all the industry emissions. So this is iron and steel, chemical and petrochemicals, cement and lime, but also aluminium. So the majority of the energy in this industry is currently sourced from fossil fuels, and there are unfortunately very little incentives to switch to cleaner and even renewable fuels, or to eliminate the emissions from the production processes. So reducing emissions in industry and to reach zero emissions will require a radical shift in the way in which we produce these materials, but also in the way we consume them and we dispose of. So there are, however, and that's the good news, that there are 5 emissions reductions measures that could, if applied at scale, reduce the industry emissions. And this is what you can see on this slide at the bottom part. And basically, we speak here about, first of all, reducing demand and energy efficiency improvements, but also direct use of renewable electricity, direct use of renewable heat and biomass, as well as indirect use of clean electricity, biosynthetic fuels and feedstock. And together, renewables could account for 46% of the economic emissions abatement potential in industry. Now, none of these options that have been identified are commercially mature or ready for wide adoption, and uncertainties remain. The reasons why we have these uncertainties are quite complex and multifold, but among them, one of them is the fact that businesses present a risk, especially for early movers. So these early movers could be faced with additional costs, but also with carbon leakage in favor of their competitors. So this is why I'm very excited to listen today and to learn from our very inspiring entrepreneurs, because I'm eager to learn about how they face some of these challenges. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Martina.
Thank you, Elena, for sharing insights, and I hope you can hear me now. Thank you, Elena, for sharing insights and key takeaways from IRENA's latest report to set the scene for the upcoming session, to see the innovation showcase in a context and then listen to the discussion. Thank you. And now we move to our next panel, focus on experience and innovative approaches in industry and buildings. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to our next moderator, Joyce Mendez, who is from Latin American Observatory for Geopolitics of Energy. Joyce, over to you.
Bye, Chapa. Hola a todos. Wherever you are in the world. I'm so happy to be here to moderate this session in renewable solutions for industry and buildings. So let's get started and let's hear from youth innovators from all around the world. So I want to introduce you first to Baitea Cohen. She's the co-founder of INAPTER. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you very much for having us. And thank you to IRENA, thank you to Initiate, and a great presentation to set the scene. So my name is Vaiteya. I'm one of the 3 co-founders of Enapter, and we manufacture the anion exchange membrane electrolyzer. So in our first slide, here we go. This is our device, and this is the device which will replace fossil fuels with green hydrogen. We started Enapter in 2017, and today we are more than 100. We have our production facility in Italy, and we have offices in Germany, Russia, and Thailand. Next slide, please. So today, solar is the cheapest source of electricity, but the power sector only accounts for 30% of our global energy consumption. What about the remaining sectors, industry, transport, and heat? The remaining 70% are still being provided by carbon-based fuels. So even if we manage to increase our electricity share, our green electricity share considerably, we need a solution to replace fossil fuels if we're serious about decarbonizing our society. Next slide, please. So hydrogen can be the way. An electrolyzer is a device that uses electricity to split water into H2 and O. Hydrogen is an energy carrier. And as you can see here, it can be used to create synthetic fuels. It can be used in a fuel cell to create electricity, or it can also be directly used to create industry feedstock or in heating and cooling application. So hydrogen it'll basically turn wind and solar electricity into a super fuel that can meet our industry, heat, and mobility needs. So it'll effectively couple all those sectors with green electricity. So until now, it is the high cost of producing hydrogen from renewables that held back its mass deployment. How will we at Enapter bring down the cost of green hydrogen? Next slide, please. Nothing has seen more rapid cost reduction in economic history than mass-produced commodities. We will mass-produce electrolyzers. Enapter's approach is unique. It can be well understood by drawing an analogy between the IT industry in the 1980s and the electrolyzer industry today. Today, large-scale electrolyzer manufacturers are producing systems similar to the IT industry's early mainframe. Every electrolyzer is designed as an individual project, requiring sophisticated engineers and also a lot of planning. Enapter is mimicking the introduction of the PC, a product that is standardized, modular, and scalable. Next slide, please. On the left, you'll see our electrolyzer today. It doesn't use any noble metals, which is how we can keep our cost low. It is also the size of a microwave, as of today, and it can be stacked according to your hydrogen output required. There's no technical limits to stacking our systems. Hydrogen also needs to be digital. So we developed our energy management system. It allows us to easily integrate hydrogen into any energy setup, and it also enables remote monitoring and control. We've also made it possible for any energy device, inverter, battery, fuel cell, you name it, no matter who their manufacturer is, these devices can communicate to each other and communicate with the electrolyzer. So our electrolyzers and EMS are running across 30 different countries in all sectors. They are replacing diesel generators and microgrids. They're also refueling planes in the UK. But if we focus today on the applications in buildings and industry, in our next slide, we can see one of our applications here in the top left. This is a building in France that uses only solar and geothermal energy. It will store its excess energy in the form of hydrogen. So when they're producing more energy than they're consuming, instead of letting it go to waste, it'll power the electrolyzer, which creates hydrogen, and then the hydrogen can be used during the nighttime, or it can also be used in the winter. So here we have a perfect example of peak shaving and seasonal storage. On the top right side, we have here one of our use cases in the Netherlands. Our electrolyzers are integrated in one of the first hydrogen projects for residential heating. And you can see here the innovative boilers that are directly combusting the hydrogen to heat the nearby apartments. On the bottom part, you'll see one of our projects with our partners in the United States. And they've developed a modular and flexible process to turn water, air, and electricity into ammonia. So ammonia will not emit any CO2 if it is combusted and used as a fuel, but it can also be used as an ingredient to create chemicals or plastic and is used in many other industrial processes. So these are just a handful of examples of how hydrogen can decarbonize the industrial sector as well as our buildings. And if we were to leave you with one last piece of advice, and click once, maybe twice, it is, no, one back, it is cooperation. So cooperation is when a group of people work towards the support of another's goal. And this is what we need to fight climate change. We need many solutions. So reach out to others. Don't be shy to share your ideas. Cooperate with scientific institutes, ministries, and other entrepreneurs, because it's only together that we will fight climate change. Thank you.
That was just brilliant. Thank you very much. It was very exciting to see the different applications and the different uses for hydrogen. And yeah, actually, cooperation is part of the key message for youth. Thank you. So right now, I also give floor to our colleagues from Occam. Please, next slide. They are Dwi Rizky and Ilham Gushi. So please, guys, go ahead.
Joyce, hello, I'm Ilham and my friend Rizky. We are from Occam. We provided, okay, next slide, please.
Yeah, we can hear you guys. Please go ahead.
Okay. We are from Occam. We provided integrated services for renewable energy system actually. In the screen, you can see that it is Indonesia, an archipelago country which disperses across thousands of islands. This geographical diversity makes it difficult to provide grid electricity to the rural isolated villages actually these recent years. And one solution to bring electricity to rural areas where the vast majority of unelectrified individual reside is renewable energy. This electrification map shows that at this time, there are 357 micro hydropowers and 616 PV systems. More will be built in the future. We can see that this is one of the real action that have been taken by the related stakeholders. However, it is not the end of the electricity problem. It's not just about the building, the installation, or the system. We have to concern about the quality of the electricity access, the asset maintenance. Here we have some problem in our country. No one held responsibility over the bill RE asset, insufficient technical capacity, and this will lead to a track record of poor maintenance of the power project. And maintenance, we know that it is more expensive than anticipated if it is not properly planned. And all those things might be the result of lacking services, lacking network to the service provider as well. Okay, next. Next slide, please. We see that people are more focusing on developing new product and technology. Only few of us concerned about after services. Here we come with a movement to provide integrated services after installation and during operation lifetime. Next, please. We bring one-stop end-to-end solution to installation owner, government, and resident in the field of inspection, supervision, testing, and training services. Inspection is mandatory to ensure the conditions of the RE system and determine the corrective or perfective action. And the supervision is to monitor the performance of the unit, testing materials, installation, and battery storage to comply with the regulation and standard. And then training is essential to build a technical capacity, one of the major problems that we face. And another thing that is very crucial is the monitoring. We drive to remote monitoring as the alternative of the local one. We try to develop the monitoring system so we can monitor the performance of our unit remotely, not from the site. You can monitor it wherever you are. And it is one of the things that we really want to drive in the coming future. Next slide, please. This is about the carbonization. The contribution to renewable energy in Indonesia is still under 15%. If we compare to the total energy consumption in Indonesia, our movement aims to arouse the public awareness to the impact of carbon emission by converting the conventional diesel power to the RE. It is the major impact that we expect actually from this movement for a massive utilization as well as public engagement on of RE. We do not want to see the installed unit just not operate for a short period of time in such a way as if we cannot maximize the function as long as possible. By creating a conducive ecosystem, we hope more people will have trust in RE in the future energy sources as the main energy sources, stimulate people to invest more in RE, and finally to have an impact on CO2 intensity as gross domestic product for a long-term decarbonization. Okay.
To the next slide, please. Thank you, Ilham. Renewable energy has emerged as a true multi-benefit system, combining ecological necessities like climate change mitigation with society's vision and socio-economic opportunities. At this stage, it is difficult to assess the immediate impact on the overall GDP per capita. However, there are promising signs of the positive impact on income based on some individual households who are powering productive appliances, such as agricultural machinery, water treatment units, grain mills, welding machines, power tools, water pumps, and other machines. Pre-existing business can add capacity to previous business lines and help youths to find greater job opportunities. Range of environmental benefits typically seen in projects that transition communities from dirty stopgap solutions such as diesel and kerosene to renewable energy sources such as solar, water, and wind. Improved air quality for a healthy environment is among these opportunities too. The indirect impact benefits the social life to create more employments, higher quality of education, and fewer spending on health due to cleaner environment conditions that leads to a healthier lifestyle. To the next slide, please. And the greatest challenge in this movement is the geographical diversity. Most of them are in rural areas and remote areas. To have an effective application of RE, we need to bridge the lack of technical capacity. Without any remote monitoring, the information barrier is real. The utilization of this unit will not be maximal too. So the key success of this action is the availability of technology and maintenance skill. It is important to catch up with the most up-to-date methods, develop a network with every stakeholder, including the government, as well as to seek their support. Because this is not one-man task. Everybody must take a part in this movement to create a renewable energy society, especially youth, who have energy, fresh ideas, and networks. All of those things are the priceless assets that we can use to create a better future. Ideas without action are nothing. Every single step we do is the progress that we make. Renewable energy for a better future. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for this amazing showcase of your entrepreneurship idea. And well, I continue with Esther Wansa. She's the mentor of energy business and energy for impact. And also, you guys have questions, please type it in the chat. Our entrepreneurs will answer you there. Please go ahead, Esther.
Thank you, Joyce, for the introduction. It's such an honor to share my experience, lessons learned, and challenges faced from working with women entrepreneurs in Kenya under the Women in Energy project. My focus will be on clean cooking and women empowerment to show how innovations in the clean cooking sector can contribute in reaching zero emissions. Business development services are proven to accelerate energy access to most of grid communities, not only in Kenya, but in sub-Saharan Africa. My presentation is going to discuss this statement by outlining the activities carried out under the Scaling Women in Energy project, a project implemented by Energy for Impact to support women entrepreneurs in rural parts of Eastern, Central, and Western Kenya. I'll begin with a brief introduction about Energy for Impact. Energy for Impact is a not-for-profit organization working with local businesses to extend access to energy in Africa through offering these services. Enterprise support, where we support the growth and development of enterprises, serving the off-grid energy market by addressing challenges relating to developing appropriate technologies and business on strategies and operations. We also assist them to access capital to start up, expand, or develop projects. Energy for Impact also supports a range of innovative projects, initiatives, and business models in a number of ways, including providing financial and technical assistance to realize their ideas, developing their management and business skills, and providing access to resources or facilities required to grow their businesses. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. In 2013, Energy for Impact designed and launched into the market a cook stove called GecoSmart. It facilitated work on design of the stove, its development and testing, and supported its dissemination through selected groups of entrepreneurs from Central, Eastern, and Western Kenya. This was conducted through building the capacity of entrepreneurs from these regions to build the stove, after which market development activities were carried out to introduce the stove to the market. Over time, the stove has undergone through several design transformations, which are all geared towards refining the product for the purpose of improving on the performance and appearance with set standards and market in mind. The stove has superior performance characteristics of a majority of locally developed and produced stoves model, and it's fairly priced for affordability. 167 entrepreneurs were recruited under the Scaling Women in Renewable Energy project between July 2019 to January 2020. They underwent technical training on the production of the stove. They also underwent business training where Energy for Impact offered one-on-one mentorship to the entrepreneurs. As the businesses were still small and did not qualify for loans, they were introduced to the other capital raising strategies such as utilizing crowdfunding platforms like Mchanga platform, and also leverage on table banking, especially for women cooperatives. Next slide, please. With a target of 62,000 tons of carbon reduction, we also wanted to empower local women while also creating jobs. Next slide, please. The project reached out to 167 women entrepreneurs, created both skilled and unskilled jobs for 475 people, of whom 47% were women. It contributed to 166,901 tons of carbon reduction. At the end of the project, the 6 months period, 212,613 people had benefited from the clean cooking products, which was 106% above our target. Entrepreneurs were also linked to solar home system distributors, thus creating more revenue streams for them. Next slide, please. What are some of the challenges we faced? The main challenge was lack of access to finance for the entrepreneurs, illiteracy, and lack of government support. To counter these challenges, we introduced strategies such as innovative financing for entrepreneurs, like the ones I mentioned on crowdfunding, training them on proposal development and table bagging strategies. We had also to train the local young artisans who had basic skills to support these entrepreneurs in production of the cook stoves. We also leveraged on product diversification for them to earn more revenue from different products. Next slide, please. What's my advice to the youth? I believe it's our time as youth to take up the opportunities available in the renewable energy sector. I'm going to talk about the upcoming Food System Summit in 2021, where youth can create linkages between energy sector and food sector by utilizing technologies such as productive use of energy, cold rooms, solar irrigation system, and climate smart agriculture. These technologies can create more opportunities for the youth to engage in entrepreneurship activities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esther. It's amazing to see how you are actually putting into practice what means energy access. You're actually empowering the local community and the women as well. Thank you. So let's go ahead with Peter Paul van Forst. He's the founder of Schoon Energy from the Netherlands. Please, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Joyce, and what an honor to be here with all of you today from 90 countries, I heard. So I'm very excited to share my story with you. For those controlling the slides, I will also have the slides behind me, so we can synchronize with those. So today I would like to share our story of how we provide clean energy on demand, and we focus here on mobile energy. The biggest focus here is on one side, diesel generators, and on the other side, the grid that has its challenges with the increased renewable energy that is introduced. It's always easiest to explain what we do with the next slide, which shows the structure of what we do. We as Schoon, we provide a clean energy marketplace. This is like any online marketplace, a place where we bring together two groups. On one end, we bring together asset owners. Those could be owners of mobile batteries or hydrogen generators. And what you can see here is that we also provide them with additional tools like a rental management software. What we do for those asset owners is we bring them closer to energy users. Energy users such as construction sites using diesel generators today, entertainment such as festivals or film sets, but also other industrial sectors like the maritime industry, where we provide shore power for larger ships and mobile swappable batteries for ships to go electric. So what we do constantly is bring these groups together, because clean energy can and should be much easier to get. And we want to lower the barrier of entry for those using the old solutions nowadays. But we also want to drive down the price, and that can only be done by having a higher utilization rate of these assets. We believe that with Schoon and with our team, we work on a solution that can drive down the price and drive up the accessibility of these clean energy solutions. So when we focus on two of those solutions on the next slide, we look at the Schoon Suite, which is our rental management software, and to Schoon Sharing, which is our online marketplace. So you could say that we are a SaaS-enabled marketplace, a software as a service, the tool that you see on the left side, that suppliers use to make the management of their companies easier. And that helps them also to be able to scale faster because their company is much better organized with this software tool. But the main goal is to manage and grow the marketplace, where we bring together those two groups. And this is a marketplace that is currently active in the Netherlands, mostly Northern Europe, some of it. But we are always looking for ways to grow faster. And that's also why we need you. We need you as stakeholders in energy to join one of the groups, either users of mobile energy, where you want to use mobile batteries, or owners of these assets, where you want to invest in a fleet of these batteries. Because we believe that our impact, on the next slide, stretches to both local and global communities. I'm especially happy to be in the call with all of you today from a global audience, because we have a shared responsibility to drive down the CO2 emissions, because that's a global problem, that's a global challenge. What we do is we reduce the local and global emissions by replacing these diesel generators or diesel engines in general. What you see here in the first picture is one of the battery containers that we own as a company ourselves. that is being used, in this case, for example, to provide shore power, clean shore power to vessels that are at berth. The same container can be used also to drive the ship fully electrically, like an electric car. And it can also be used as a temporary power solution for construction sites. You can hear it already, it's very multifunctional. And with multifunctionality comes complexity. That's why we also focus on the second picture, is providing the best scalable software to enable growth of clean energy storage. We focus on developing and managing the commercial software needed to be able to make faster return on investment, and also to be able to make easier investment decisions because you know you've got your organization covered. So with this, we facilitate management of hundreds of clean energy storage assets. And then lastly, we also empower people and businesses to attract investment into clean energy projects. We do this by connecting asset owners in our network to investors. We help them by getting more insights into the business cases, into the potential markets, by connecting them to customers. And in this way, as we should, as a marketplace, we are constantly connecting. And that also brings me to the next slide, where we were asked to also share some advice for you young people. And this is threefold, and this is what experts have advised me to do because I'm a young person myself as well. And the first thing is to think big. At Scone, we could have started with a small software system or with a small portable battery. But no, we were able to, with the support of many good experts, advisors, and investors, we've been able to immediately focus on the industrial application, and that is needed. It is needed to focus on the big challenges at hand, and you guys have the energy and you have the resources to do that. And when we do that, we also must support each other. As a global young community, it is our shared mission to create a better world. And it's all about the numbers. It's all about the shares, the likes, the followers, and those things will help each other. It's all about the insights. So share insights with each other. But also simple things can be done, like supporting each other by following each other on LinkedIn. So go to LinkedIn, type in Scone Energy and click follow, and that already helps us drive our mission, expand our audience, and also expand our goals. And lastly, and I think most importantly, what has been taught to me in the last 3 years of running Scone, look for the business cases. Look for ways that you can convince the status quo with real opportunities in their eyes and business cases in their eyes. Because many of you have the luck to be working for a foundation, but many of us don't have that position. So there you have to focus on what actually makes money and not what loses money. So look for those business cases. There are many out there. You must be a bit creative sometimes, but look for those business cases in order to really scale your business. So thank you so much. We are looking for many different partners, among them strategic investors, but also potential asset owners, also potential suppliers for example, electrolyzer systems or many other things. So here's our contact details, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for bringing those amazing perspectives that your guys working in Scone regarding the marketplace and actually working locally. It's what we think it's fundamental for the energy access as well. Thank you. So we give floor to our last entrepreneur. He is Jeremiah Thoronka from Optim Energy. Please, Jeremiah, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you for being here today. I'm Jeremiah Thoronka, and I'm the founder of Optim Energy. So a brief overview of Optim Energy. In Sierra Leone, the access to modern energy services or access to energy remains limited, wherein over 89% of the population don't have access to energy. and most of this population rely on biomass or fossil fuel to get access to energy. And the primary source of energy production in the country is like fossil fuel, that amount for like 96%. And in cutting down the rising CO2 gas emission in the country and high access, the high cost of energy in the country, that's how Optim Energy came about. So what we do at Optim is we use this kinetic energy and the vibration in providing access to clean and affordable energy. So how we go about providing that energy, basically we develop like a piezoelectric device wherein it has a technology that enables it to access energy from pressure, heat, and vibration. Whenever the device is compressed, the energy that is emitted from the moving object is being transformed into like energy that we send to our consumers. So at Optim, we are a social entrepreneurial venture. So our business model is basically focused on promoting like the energy transition and how we can reduce like cost of energy production, consumption, and as well as CO2 gas emission from where we operate. So these are three key things that we focus on at Optim Energy. Is we want to continue maintaining 100% carbon-free emissions from our generating capacity, when all our devices that we use emit zero carbon into the environment. We want to maintain it that way and try to see how we can contribute towards the global goal in making sure we reduce carbon emission rate around the globe. But then we will have to start with Sierra Leone. The second big picture of Optim Energy is promoting the circular economy concept, wherein in areas where we operate, we have programs that try to encourage people to join our project, even though currently it's a startup, but then that's like the bigger goal, wherein we want to see how we can produce more energy using zero resources around. And another thing also that's anchored to our business model is how we can create awareness on energy efficiency. So we also have what we call the Optim Energy Online Calculator that enables consumers to calculate like their energy consumption per appliance. There are a lot of programs that have been rolled out over the last couple of years, and even though like these programs have been rolled out in making sure carbon emission is cut down, more energy efficient appliances are introduced into the market, but then still the problem continues. So people who subscribing to our program at how much energy they will save and how much cost they also save along the way. Yeah, we go to the next slide. So currently during our prototyping phase, these are like milestones that we've reached. One is we've been able to work with 150 households that the 150 households and 15 schools in providing them access to free energy. Then another in those 150 households over during our prototyping phase, we like the amount to over 1,500 people, and the 15 schools amount to over 9,000 kids. Then during the same period, we've been able to facilitate 5% efficiency and 70% growth in energy the areas where we currently operate. Then as part of our impact as well, we've been able to decrease greenhouse gas emission, and as well as the pressure on the environment, wherein most people in the community their primary source of fuel was like going to the forest and cut down some couple of trees and making sure they have access to energy. And most people use this also fossil fuel. So those 1,500 people that we've been working with, we've been able to manage their carbon emission to providing them with clean energy, and also along the way our programs, our awareness programs. Then as well as we've also been able to impact like health issues, because then in most areas in the places where we operate, most kids use this fossil fuel, as in like kerosene, to study or firewood. After they switch to Optim, we've been able to cut down the effect of photochemical smog, where the inhalation of those chemicals initially used to have health impact on those kids, but now those incidents have improved along the way. We've also been able to increase economic activities because then access to energy is like a foundation to access to energy is a foundation to economic growth. So to Optim Energy, we've been able to increase like the So my advice to youth, it's very much simple. As youth, our future is what we'll make out of it. And the future is green, and let's make it stay that way. And in making it stay that way, let's continue building on our skills, our knowledge, and also continue contacting or networking with the right people that will take us to achieve these goals. Each and every solution that you develop, make sure you consider the impact on the environment, and also as you develop a solution, consider the circular economy concept, and also have at the back of your mind how your solutions will impact another SDG, in making sure we create a world that everybody will feel safe and proud to be part of. Thank you so much for being part of this presentation. I look forward to connect with you all.
Thank you, Jeremiah. It was amazing to understand and to see the local disruptions that you're doing and innovative approaches. All right, so right now we go directly to our last session on this youth talk. So we're going to have this panel discussion on supporting youth innovation in the carbonizing industry and building. For this, I want to introduce Ernesto Chiora, who's the Chief Innovability Officer of NL. So hello, Ernesto, how are you doing? And before you start, I already have a question for you. So basically, I would like to know, well, we would like to know how important you think it is to encourage innovative entrepreneurship in young people, and why?
I think that young people are lucky because they have less experience. Therefore, fewer mental paradigms that limit their evaluations, their creativity, their ideas, their real ideas out of the box. They may be wrong. They may say crazy things. Also, they can make a lot of mistakes, but they rarely say banal, trivial things. Unfortunately, the experts, the so-called experts, they have skills, experience, but they are limited by their own competence and experience. There are a lot of mental paradigms that limit themselves. They know the rules. They know what they have to do and what people must avoid to do in a business. Unfortunately, young people often innovate because they don't simply know the rules. They are not prisoners of those mental paradigms and don't follow the rules. They do things that experts don't have to do. And they do follow paradigms that for experts are the basis of the research, of the innovation, also of the business. That's why at Tenel, we encourage listening from outside ideas. We have analyzed more than 8,000 startups in the last 4 years, and we have implemented more than 800 projects with startups, and we have scaled up more or less 80 startups at global level. When I say scale up, I mean that we have adopted their solution, and we have implemented them at global level in all the countries where we operate. So the startups scaled up very fast and very hard. And we are very happy for that because we don't want to be limited by our mental paradigms.
Thank you.
I hope that I answered your question.
Yeah, a lot to think. Amazing. So before continuing the conversation, I also want to introduce Thaddeus Anim, who is engineering manager of projects in Croda. Hello, Thaddeus, can you hear us? And I also have a question for you. I would like you to share basically your perspective in the urgent need to decarbonize industry and the role of renewables, and basically in your role as an industrial in an industrial company that you have heavily been involved in the effort to curb carbon emissions. Can you share some of the initiatives that you are implementing there, please?
Yeah, I'll start off with the urgent needs. You know, climate change is not an option. It's happening. And decarbonisation is not a choice. There will be consequences, and the consequences of not decarbonising are going to be greater. So we need to mobilise, and that's something that's been also said now, you know, of course, at all scientific levels, also by governments around the world. You've seen it in the EU with the EU Green Deal for a green economy. And actually, after COVID, we're looking for a green society. You know, actually being sustainable should be a way of living. Now, what role does industry have to play in that? Going back to some of the points that IRENA have mentioned, 75% of the kind of emissions that we have are coming from energy and sector. And when we're breaking that down into where is it actually going, you know, 28% are coming from industry, you know, and that means that we cannot curb our emissions without drastically curbing the industry emissions. And that's why industry needs to take action at this moment. You know, who is pushing them to take action? It's not necessarily the financially most attractive choice, and industry companies, they're about making profit, not about being good in general. NGOs are about being good. Industry is about making money. So this is where we need the kind of intersection between communities, essentially the consumer, governments and industry to incentivize, because at the end of the day, if the consumer wants sustainable products, industry will make it. That's how it will move. If the government says to industry that it has to produce in a sustainable way, it will produce in a sustainable way. And how do governments move? How do consumers change? They change through individuals like me, like you, like youth that have been on the streets protesting for climate change, raising the awareness. Now, looking at what is going on in society right now, you're seeing even some of the big oil and gas companies, you know, are committing now to becoming climate neutral by 2050. You know, Shell have committed to becoming climate neutral by 2050, and actually Repsol have committed, and even there's a company called Nesta that have even committed to becoming climate neutral by 2035. And so these are great commitments, but we've got to see the words yet, you know, because Paris Agreement, we're looking at what was in the Paris Agreement. We're not on target. We're behind it. There were commitments made, and we're not there yet. So part of what we're doing at Croda, what I'm involved in, is we also made a commitment that by 2030, we want to be climate positive. And how we're going to do that, we're going to reduce our absolute emissions in operations by 50%, but also the product portfolio that we're making, we are looking to actually save emissions with the products that we're making. We're looking to save 4 times more carbon emissions with the products that we're making than actual emissions that we're producing. And also oil and gas companies are looking at this kind of stuff too, because, for instance, they might be changing to making renewable fuels, saving emissions instead of adding on emissions with their products. Now, that's easier said than done, because, what first way you can save emissions is just to go green electricity, everything electricity, but the grid needs to be in place. There's not enough electricity there's not the infrastructure for all of industry suddenly to flick the switch. So it's something that you need to use innovation. You need to think about how you can reduce it with new technologies, new chemistries. Look at what biotechnology can do for you. It's something that you need to think about radical ideas outside of the box, change the products that you make, change even the way you make the products. And it's something that you need to do kind of together. You need to collaborate. You need to collaborate with the suppliers. You need to collaborate with your customers, and to make it happen. And so when we're looking at our decarbonisation roadmap that we're making now to actually reduce our emissions by 50%, there's a lot of different projects, and some of them even involve collaborating with rival companies, for instance, to, if we were going to build up a hydrogen hub network, you need to come together as companies to collaborate. So you're going to have an infrastructure of hydrogen in that local area. And that's the kind of thing that's going on right now in Croda and going on in a lot of industries now. But youth, I would say to them, they need to challenge, they need to rebel, they need to push, because right now commitments are being made, but the action needs to come.
Brilliant, Tadeusz. Thank you. So I want to also introduce again to Esther Wansa from Energy for Impact. So Esther, yes, we do have a question for you. Is actually, what experience can you share as an entrepreneur in the energy field? And what is your opinion? Is it the step of starting up a business high in this field? Go ahead.
Sorry, Joyce, I didn't get you well.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's like it's 2 questions in one. So first one is can you share what experiences can you share as an entrepreneur in the energy field? This is kind of the main questions. And what is your opinion? Is it the step of starting up a business high in this field? What can you give us some of your experiences as an energy entrepreneur? Thank you.
Okay, I've worked with entrepreneurs in the energy sector, and I believe renewable energy presents many opportunities, from clean cooking to mini grids to productive use of energy. So it's up to us as youths to go for what makes us happy. What is it that you are passionate about? And maybe you work, we work on it with all the energy you have. Bring your whole person to work on it and have fun doing it. My happiness is seeing entrepreneurs grow their businesses, and more specifically, women entrepreneurs who do not have any skills in renewable energy technologies. So building their capacity in this sector and helping them to grow their businesses in this sector, it's something I love working on. So it's like a responsibility for each one of us as youths to take the decarbonization agenda seriously, and maybe each one of us to concentrate on the area which he or she is passionate about, and also to achieve, to work so that all of us can work towards a common goal. Secondly, it's whenever we are developing anything in the energy sector, let's not look at the profit or losses. We need to offer a solution which solves a problem in our communities. What is it that we need to solve in our community? What people experience in our communities that we can solve? So we also need to look at the problems around us so that we can create a sustainable business models. Yeah, that's my contribution.
That's great. Thank you, Esther. So we're gonna do one more round of questions for each of you. So I want to call again Thaddeus, and I want to ask you actually, as a young chemical engineer starting out your career, what advice would you actually give to any young person interested in doing chemical engineering?
I would say, following on from what Esther said, you've got to look at the challenges out there and the problems, and don't be doomed by them. Actually, think big. Think about the solutions. That's exciting, because all the challenges of sustainability with your skills as an engineer, you can be a part of the solution. You can be and even if you're not an engineer, in a company, as a consumer, as an individual, you can be a part of the change driving that solution. So I would say, follow your passion and really just look at the skills you have and how you can use those to contribute to the sustainability agenda, decarbonisation agenda, and the ones that you don't have, connect with other people, collaborate, and together you're gonna push it forwards.
Thank you. Yes, actually, that's what we need right now. Everybody working and youth, especially involving more as well as in engineering to propose this energy transition. Alrighty, so basically, yes, Ernesto, we're gonna leave you at the end to close the message. So I want to go back with Esther. And I actually, there is a question I want to ask, well, someone asked actually, and it's how many employees are you at Energy for Impact, and what skills and knowledge your employees cover? That's mainly the question. Esther, can you hear us?
Yes, Joyce. So for Energy for Impact, we actually have many branches. We have the East African office based in Nairobi. We have the main headquarters in UK. We also have a West African office based in Senegal. So in the East African office, we have employees who have experiences from across all renewable energy technologies, and who offer support to businesses who are looking into the energy sector in Africa. So our skills run from market analysis and advisory support to mini grids developers, business support, business development services, and we have up to around more than 30, I think, not 30, I mean 50 employees in the Nairobi office. So yeah, but from the other offices, maybe that it's something I can consult. I'm not sure about. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, and yeah, and basically the other part of the questions are what kind of skills and area of knowledge those employees cover. Like if you can give us an overall regarding this. But if you think it's okay, so I can go ahead with the next question. All right. Okay. So yes, we have our last question, and it goes to Ernesto. So it's again 2 questions. So first of all, how do you think we can solve the conflict, making profit and being good environmentally? This is one question. But in the same way, also, what is needed nowadays in the industry, building sector, and what is the role of youth? Yeah, not easy. Go ahead.
To me,
yes.
we need to be humble. We need to be humble and to admit that there are a lot of entrepreneurs all around the world that can be better than a so skilled and experienced engineer in a so amazing company like Canon. Being humble allow us to include in our innovation activities 1,000 people who are not being hired by Enel or other big companies, and who are definitely ready to give their support to companies like us. Because unfortunately, the innovators have a problem. They have been successful, so they think that they are the best, the most talented people, and they don't need anyone else. This is the right problem. So being humble allow companies like Enel to have now more than 500,000 innovators working for Enel, even if we have only 72,000 employees. How could it happen? We have startups working for Enel in Brazil, where we have in Rio the lab, the hub, and the lab. We have another lab in Sao Paulo, and we have startups working with us. We have startups working with us in San Francisco or in Boston, where we have the hubs. And we have hubs in Tel Aviv and in Moscow. And many, many startups hosted by us work in our labs all around the world. We have labs in Brazil, in Colombia, in Spain. And in many countries, we are hosting startups admitting that they could be better than us. And on the other side, unfortunately, I must underline it, also the startuppers must be more humble. Because in many cases, they don't want to listen. In many cases, they think that they are the best ones in the world, and they don't want to admit that the dialogue always is useful for people. Because even if I'm right and you are wrong, I can explain to you why I'm right. And when I explain, I better clarify even to myself why I'm right. But in the majority of cases, I'm never fully right, and you are never fully wrong. So I can learn, and you can learn, because if I have an apple and I give you an apple, and you have an apple and you give me the apple, at the end of the process, we will have just one apple per person. But if I have an idea and you have an idea and we share the ideas, at the end of the process, we will have 2 ideas. So we'll be richer. So being humble, listening to our people, and listening to people outside the company is definitely important. So I have been a serial entrepreneur. I founded the first company when I was 19, 20 years old. And so I know what does it mean to be an entrepreneur. Many managers in big companies, they don't understand it because they never practiced it. In our company, we have something special. The CEO and the top management team is formed with former startuppers. Because also our CEO, 11 years ago, founded Enel Green Power. That was a small startup with a few young people involved by him in this dream, creating a company focused only on renewables. And this company now is the largest renewable player in the world. But 11 years ago, it was just a startup. Even having the headquarters. They didn't have the headquarters, so they started, and after they had the headquarters. And me, I founded 3 companies, but I want to share one failure. When I was 20, I founded the first one. When I was 23, after my graduation, I say, okay, I can sell it. I will not be able to survive with my startup. I didn't believe enough in myself. After 2 years and a half, the same company has been sold for some million of euros. I have sold it for the equivalent of 40,000 euros. So I didn't believe enough in myself. People, hey, guys, startuppers, believe in yourself. But on the other side, be humble. Otherwise, you will never be able to scale up. After I founded other 2 companies, and I was definitely luckier, and they grew up very fast. And one was a consulting company focused only on innovation that I founded in the year 2003. So at that time, nobody was talking about open innovation and similar stuff, rather than Professor Henry Chesbrough, who inspired me. And after some years, I sold this company to a big fund. So it was a successful way out for me as a startupper. But I want to share with you, being humble and don't be limited by the failures. I have shared a failure of mine. Failures are very important. More you fail, more you learn. More you learn, more you are richer you are. So no limits. It's written in Italian, but behind me it's written nessun limite. That is to say, no limits.
Ernesto, molto grazie. Muito obrigado for
Obrigado.
you, for all of the panelists. Thank you, and it was an honor to be with you here, guys. Thank you. So I call again back to Martina.
Thank you, Joyce, and our distinguished speakers for yet another inspiring and very informative showcase of innovation and discussions. Thank you again very much to all of you. With this, we conclude our discussions. To close the event, let me thank again to our innovators and panelists, moderators, but special thanks goes to Initiate and UN SDG 7 Youth Constituency for organizing this session with us, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the near future. It is quite challenging to recap all the fascinating innovation and discussions we heard today. It is amazing to see not only the ideas, but also the patience and persistence of young entrepreneurs to follow their passion and help at their local level to transition to greener and more sustainable future. What resonated with me was those advices these young entrepreneurs shared. Think big, don't be afraid, support each other, be cooperative, and look for business case. And to quote Ernesto, be humble, don't limit yourself don't be limited by your failures, and dialogue is always useful. So thank you for this. And for the sake of time, let me make a final announcement, because I would like to invite you to our last session today, which starts at 2 p.m. Central European Time, which is approximately in 1.5 hours. We will be hosting this session where IRENA will summarize key insight and takeaway from all sessions which happened this week, and will reflect on main challenges and opportunities and try to identify next steps. We will have a climate change champion and UK COP26 presidency to discuss what all this means for Paris Agreement. And then we will bring technological solutions in a broader context and discuss how policies, regulatory framework, and finance can help to scale up the decarbonization of challenging industry and transport sectors. There is still time to register, so please go ahead on the website link there to look for a registration link. And that is all from us for today. Thank you again to all of you who join us, and see you in our next session. Bye.